Whoa, baby, whoa, baby. It feels like it's been 5 months since last week. Jesus Christ! Let's get this show on the road. I'm digging this beat. I don't want to stop it. Okay. I had my fun. Wow. You know, I mean, it's interesting because if you just, let's say if you only just watch this YouTube show, right? You don't watch wrestling, you're just following along and the comings and goings here. Like, everything has changed. Again, it's like mind-boggling how rapidly things change. And like, you know, I always expect small changes here or there because change is constant, right? You know, and so the side effect of owning a business, period. You know, you always have to change, you always have to evolve, especially if you're in the entertainment business and your job is to entertain people. You know, what people like ebbs and flows. It's mass, you know, a lot of people like certain things, maybe a few people like a certain thing. It's all over the place. But at the rate that the wrestling landscape has changed so drastically and rapidly in the last 5 years, maybe I would say, gosh. I mean, I felt like, honestly, the first snowflake that fell in the avalanche was the whole pipe bomb thing that happened so many years ago. That was back in 2011? So maybe we're looking at, you know, about a decade ago. Everything started to change. That was kind of when, you know, people were getting fed up with the booking in WWE. They wanted to see a new face. Punk takes over, goes on this massive run, ends up leaving, drops another pipe bomb against the company on Colt's podcast. Indies start resurging. WWE takes notice. Creates, you know, because indies were jumping on the fact that there were a lot of discontented wrestling fans and they were out there trying to give them a product. Then Triple H sees this. They start poaching. Well, I mean, however you want to say it, but they started signing guys from the indies, making NXT this super indie fed. It goes way over. The indies continue to grow. It ends up culminating in Tony Khan stepping in with the Bucks and Jericho and Cody and creating All Elite Wrestling. NXT is thrown into the mix to be a direct challenge to that. It fails. It ends up getting completely disbanded. Triple H is essentially taken out of power. Has a heart issue on some sort of leave. Then Vince McMahon goes down for paying off women he's had sexual relationships with within the company in upwards of $20 million within the last several decades. Stockholders say no. Vince retires rather than resigning or getting fired, but he retires. Stephanie McMahon becomes the co-CEO of the company along with Nick Khan. And Triple H is in control of what's going on in front of the camera. Last year we had All Out 2021, probably the biggest moment in AEW's history. That's when that was the return to CM Punk, Danielson, Cole. Huge night for the company. Shortly after, Cody Rhodes leaves the company. One of the EVPs ends up showing up at WrestleMania this past year. as a new signee over as hell. Um, and, here we are. We have these two companies with two different styles of presenting professional wrestling to the world. One is WWE, one was AEW. AEW catered to they're capitalizing off of the indie boom. All of those fans collectively who enjoyed all those indie promotions. This is a place where, like NXT, they took the best of the best and put them all together. But outside of that, they were also taking the best from pretty much everywhere else. Guys like Moxley, Chris Jericho, CM Punk, Danielson. This was more than just a super indie fed. This was another promotion that was looking to make a splash on the scene. Punk coming back was a big deal, I mean, Punk was one of those guys where people still chanted his name in crowds whenever they were displeased with something going on in WWE. His name was still chanted as a reminder that there were people out there that did not like the product as it was. Now, I don't even know where to begin. So let's go over the events of the weekend as they unfolded. All right, let's start from Friday and we'll work our way over towards Wednesday, which will end up leading into tonight's review. So I'll try and do this as chronologically as I possibly can. Okay. There have been rumors leading up to Friday's Rampage, which was the next AEW show to happen after my last broadcast. There have been rumors that there was growing discontent with CM Punk in terms of something Adam Page said in a promo. To be quite honest, when Punk was cutting that promo, I had no idea when Hangman was cutting that promo, I had no idea who the hell Hangman was actually referencing, I thought it was a little bit of an odd direction to take because it's two baby faces. Hangman was a huge babyface champion. He beats Omega. He slays the dragon. A big long-term storyline comes to pass. So he was the babyface of the company. Now, granted, there's been criticism about his reign since it started. I talk about this every week on the show, that I think it was up to the fact that the contenders that were placed in this path were not properly booked. No one really cared about any of the contenders that Hangman fought because they were all people that we expected to lose. They weren't necessarily losers, but they weren't built up to be contender material. If anything, if they were racking up wins, this is when Tony was putting number one contenders on Dark and Elevation and padding their numbers to justify title shots. But to be quite honest, it's not the quantity of wins that you get, it's the quality of wins that you get. And when you're fighting guys that are no names on Dark and Elevation, it's not really a great way to build a necessary contender. And when your champions are just getting a bunch of bums, it's not really, especially as a babyface champion, it's kind of boring. I mean, look what happened with Thunder Rosa. They didn't really put any worthwhile champions in front of her either. The best one that they had, I thought, was Serena Deeb. She was a compelling character. She was already racking up wins prior to Thunder Rosa winning the title. And I thought she was the best contender that she had. Hangman did not have that benefit. I mean, I think they threw Dante Martin in there and Hangman got like a 3-minute win. It just didn't make any sense. I don't blame Hangman. I mean, if anything, the only thing I could possibly blame him for is that if he did notice that the quality of his contenders were lacking, it's his job as the champion to be like, listen, Tony, I need you to start building up better challenges for me because these guys, like, the crowd doesn't care. They're bums. Where was I going with that? So, it's been so, we had two babyface champions, I mean, two baby faces that were fighting against each other. So I figured, listen, Heyman's got to come at Punk for something. It can't just be a whole, I respect you, let me kiss your butt, blah, blah, blah. We're going to have a great fight. He decided to come at it where, listen, like, I don't like, you may be a great wrestler, but I don't think you'd be a great champion. It has more to do with what goes on outside of the ropes when the camera's off. And was mentioned something about workers' rights. I don't necessarily know. Apparently, that was in reference to something having to do with Colt Cabana. I really don't know. And to be quite honest, as a fan, I really don't care. The only thing that I care about is the fact is Punk's reaction. The following week, which was Punk calling out Hangman, and Hangman was just not around because it wasn't scripted for him to come out, nor was it scripted for him to call him out. I just thought it was, they were saying, Punk was going into business for himself. Here's how I thought of things until today. To me, I thought that AEW has been trying to blur the lines between fantasy and reality for quite some time now. They've been having successes, they've been having failures. At this point, there was such rampant incompetence all the way from Tony Khan down that I was like, no way that there could be that many dumb people that this could possibly happen. But it did. So the whole thing was, Punk wasn't, he wasn't the guy that they said he was. And here's the interesting. This is why, so this goes back to what I was saying. I was thinking this is a work until someone gets fired. All right. So we currently do not know the status of CM Punk. It is expected that he will probably be fired because they are crowning a new AEW champion at Grand Slam. Not interim, AEW champion. They also did not do interim titles for the trios belts. There are new trios champions as of tonight, which we'll go over tonight in the review. But I figured it was all a work until someone got fired. So apparently, it's not a work. What happened. We'll get into that shortly. So there have been a series of promos that have been going on regarding CM Punk and all the challengers that he's had in AEW, and all of them have said the same thing. Everyone thinks that you're this guy. No one likes you. No one wants you here. Kingston said that. Hangman said that. Mox said something to that effect. MJF 100% said that. Everybody that Punk faced all had the same things to say about him. He wasn't the guy that we thought he was. No one wanted him in the company. We wanted him out. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. So I figured, hey, listen, that's a great storyline to go up against CM Punk. I mean, he's the big name. Everybody loves him. There's obviously going to be some sort of jealousy and animosity. People are going to feel threatened that their spots could be taken because he's a big name. All this stuff in the realm of storyline makes perfect sense to me. Okay? So as this drama, which was apparently very real, unfolded, it very much so mirrored this whole storyline that they were going on with, that they were trying to tell with Punk since the beginning. Now, it's been my theory for quite some time that MJF was going to be the one to take the title off of CM Punk at this past All Out. Obviously, sitting here today on Wednesday, September the 7th, episode 31, that has not happened. What ended up happening, unfortunately, was after CM Punk won the title, he ended up getting injured and having to relinquish his status as champion. And, well, he was still champ. They made an interim champ. They had a tournament, and Moxley won. So, it is of my opinion that around that time, they were going to have MJF come back, challenge Punk for the title, and beat him at All Out in Chicago for the belt. Now, I believe that this was the planned storyline, and obviously I have no insider information or anything like that. This is just what I'm surmising based on the storyline evidence that's been put in front of me. My theory was that he was going to win the title at All Out because one of the last things he said to CM Punk is like, the next time I beat you, it's going to be embarrassing. It's going to be in front of your loved ones, and people are going to see it, and people are going to talk about it. It would only make sense for MJF to come back and beat CM Punk for the title in his hometown crowd. That would have been the final nail in the coffin of that feud and the coronation of MJF. But I think the injury to Punk got in the way of that. So they ended up playing off of this storyline about how Max was not content with the company and all this shit. And obviously, all these people who were saying Max wasn't happy. Well, Max is back right now, all right? So obviously, that was a work. in terms of him being happy and him leaving and no one's spoken with MJF and blah, blah, blah. This was obviously Tony playing off of the things that people have been hearing online and trying to make some sort of very real life story into a storyline. All right. So that's how I thought All Out was going to end up. But that did not happen that way because Punk got injured. Mox was the champ. They ended up deciding who was going to be the champion at All Out, which, as we all know, CM Punk won. Now, here are a couple of different things that I want to talk about. Number one, I don't think, and I could be wrong here. If there's anyone in the chat who wants to weigh in on this, you're more than welcome to. But I think the majority of people, if you're not one who listens to wrestling media or follows the backstage talk on the internet, I don't think there's any way that you would know that Hangman was referencing Colt Cabana. I don't think anyone would have known that unless Punk said something. So, as far as the fans go, we had no idea that was an inside shot. If indeed it was, it sounds like it is, but who fucking knows? All right? That's number one. Number two, if the fans didn't know it, then why would you go on camera, on the microphone, and call out Hangman unscripted, knowing that he can't come out? But why do it on camera? The guy is always, Punk's always the guy saying, my door is open, you have something to say to me, say it to my face. It just seems like if someone has a problem with him, they should come to him. But he doesn't feel like he has to go to anybody. So instead, he thought that the better idea was to go on camera and basically, quote unquote, go into business for himself, which was reported. We'll go over what his thoughts about that report were on the post-media scrum as I go along with the story. I just don't understand. Why put it on camera? You're the guy who says, hey, my door's open, I'll talk to anyone to their face. Why not just talk to Hangman? Why not talk to Hangman instead of just using the mic and going on national television and trying to do something like that? It just didn't make any sense to me. It just doesn't align with the person that Punk says that he is. So, anywho, the match goes down. Really, that's the only thing that was coming about. I mean, it was kind of a secondary story. Everyone was talking about Clash at the Castle, which I thought was a phenomenal show. That was the first basically pure Triple H show. Drew McIntyre and Roman had a phenomenal match. Riddle and Rollins had a phenomenal match. Sheamus and Gunther had a phenomenal match. I thought it was a great show from top to bottom. And the Cardiff crowd was incredible. If you're a wrestling fan, 100% you should check out Clash at the Castle. I think it's on Peacock for streaming. It was a great, great show. People were, people were talking about Worlds Collide. I mean, it was a big wrestling weekend. All three of the big major brands were on display. We had WWE, both Raw and SmackDown brands were at Clash at the Castle. We had NXT combining NXT UK and NXT US together in one show. Then you had AEW. This is supposed to be a great weekend. No one's talking about how great the wrestling was in this weekend because this motherfucker decided to go off and basically prove himself to be a hypocrite, to be quite honest, because all of this could have been settled if he was the man he says he was and actually went to people's faces and talked to them about what issues he had. But it doesn't seem like any of that was done. Or it seemed like when it attempted to be done, he was ready to throw hands. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the straight edge guy, right? He wasn't on drugs. He wasn't drunk or anything, right? I'm just saying. I don't know how that happened. So, anywho. So, Clash was great. Worlds Collide was all right. I thought it was probably the weaker of the three shows of the weekend. Braun Breaker is the now new champ, and I think Pretty Deadly's the undisputed champs. And I think Carmelo Hayes retained, if I'm not mistaken. All Out happens. Great show. Some of the best matches of the night were the Trios title match. Hangman and Dark Order versus the Elite, which is Kenny and the Bucks. Great match. The Acclaimed versus Swerve in Our Glory. Fantastic tag match. The match between Punk and Mox was a great match. The match between between Danielson and Jericho, great match. MJF returns. He Stokely had towards the end of the ladder match, they had Stokely Hathaway come out. He took the chip. He gave it to a man in a devil's mask who was masked. He pretended he was going to take his mask off, but basically said no, he wasn't going to do it. I figured it was a good way to lead into some intrigue or mystery on Dynamite. Instead, they decided to make that as a reveal for the end of the show, which ended up being MJF. Huge pop for MJF in Chicago. Basically calling out Punk and challenging him for the belt. It was a great show. You know? I still think that the cards are too long. You know what I mean? But I mean, like, it ended around, like, I think it ended around, like, 11:30, 12 o'clock, I believe. But, like, 15 matches from 0 hour all the way to the end. Like, if you were someone who went there in the crowd, like, that's a long time to be sitting in cramped seats. Like, unless you're in a suite, that's a pain in the ass of a show to sit through. So, no, I didn't bother hearing Corny's thoughts on this because his opinion doesn't matter to me, to be quite honest. I mean, hey, listen, I respect the guy for what he's done in the business, but the way I look at wrestling and the way that Jim Cornette looks at wrestling are two different things. And he's the last person that would influence me. The same thing goes with anyone else online. You got guys like, other guys who've been around in the business, like Disco and or Meltzer. I don't care. I honestly, I leaned upon them for news and scoops, and now I just rather not know and rather just enjoy the show as it's presented in front of me. That's, I don't mind, hey, listen, like, the inner workings of the business as someone who studied business, like, it is interesting to me. Sometimes I really honestly can't help myself. But corny, I could care less. I honestly could. I honestly could. So, where was it going? So it was a great show. They have the post-media scrum. And, I remember I wasn't going to watch it. I was actually going to play some Destiny 2. And, speaking of, Rob shows up in the chat. So, and then all of a sudden I hear on one of my wrestling chats, yo, Punk's going off. I'm like, what? Punk's going off? What's the big deal? And I'm trying to see if I could find the direct quotes. The direct quotes from Punk. Let's see. Hold on a second. No, that's not it. No. I don't think I can find the notes, unfortunately. Report, no. 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 Okay. Let's see. I think this is it right here. All right, so basically, the press conference starts off, and already Punk is talking. So I didn't get to hear, and like I went back, and the video's still up there. You can confirm this all for yourself on AEW's YouTube channel. But as the video starts, Punk is already talking, and from interviews that I've watched from people who were actually there, I believed I watched We're Live Pal and saw John Alba's direct account as to what happened at the scrum because he was there. He had said that Punk had seen a reporter that was apparently covering the trial that Punk and Colt Cabana were going through. And I guess this prompted him to start talking about Cabana. This was the direct quotes from CM Punk. You could confirm this on the YouTube channel. This is not over embellished. This is direct quotes. Now it's 2022. I haven't been friends with this guy since at least 2014, late 2013. The fact that I have to sit up here because we have irresponsible people who call themselves EVPs and couldn't fucking manage a target, and they spread lies and bullshit and put it into the media that I got somebody fired when I have fuck all to do with them, want nothing to do with him, do not care where he works, where he doesn't work, where he eats, where he sleeps, and the fact that I have to get up here and do this in 2022 is fucking embarrassing. And if you're all at fault, fuck you. If not, I apologize. That was in regards to that. Now the EVPs are Kenny and the Bucks. So obviously that was a direct shot towards Kenny and the Bucks. Per CM Punk, direct quotes. One of the other things he said at the press conference was, "Would I ever do in this world to deserve an empty-headed, fucking dumb fuck like Hangman Adam Page to go on national television and fucking go into business for himself? For what? What did I do? What did I ever do? Didn't do a goddamn thing." It's not Tony's position to make it very fucking clear that and this is in regards to Punk not having anything to do with Cabana being moved to ROH, because the reports that were coming out is that Punk wanted ROH Cabana moved to ROH. I thought that was a stupid report. I don't really put any credence into it. Honestly, I think the dude just watches too much, reads the internet too much, and he's gone off. There are people who call themselves EVPs that should have fucking known better. This shit was none of their business. I can understand sticking up for your fucking friends. I fucking get it. I stuck up for that guy more than anybody, okay? I paid his bills until I didn't, and it was my decision not to. He went on and said other things about Colt Cabana sharing an account with his mother and assumes to hide money. Basically, I guess he used his mom as a bulletproof shield financially, so that if Punk really wanted to go after Cabana, he would have had to go after his mother, and I guess that's where he put the stop to everything. I don't know, nor do I care. That is a outside of wrestling issue involving two guys, and apparently people decided to bring it into fucking wrestling. Don't shit where you eat. So, that, unfortunately, as the media scrum was going on, led into an actual physical confrontation. Now, there are a lot of conflicting reports as to what happened. Obviously, there are two sides to the story. Punk and Ace Steel side and the Elite side. In terms of how it went down, some people are saying that the Bucks walked into Punk's locker room to discuss what was going on. Other people said the Bucks barged their way, the Bucks barged their way in and kicked down the door. There was things saying that Omega got involved, tried to get Ace Steel out of the melee. Ace Steel bit him. Nick Jackson got hit with a chair. Someone gets knocked out. The fact of the matter is, apparently, things got physical between CM Punk, Ace Steel, Kenny Omega, Matt and Nick Jackson, Brandon Cutler, Michael Nakazawa, and Christopher Daniels. The reason why all of those people were directly mentioned, because it looks like all of them were suspended. When Dynamite went on the air, neither the Bucks, neither Omega, neither any of those that were mentioned, including Punk, who until today was the AEW World Champion, were in the intro to Dynamite tonight. The show opens up. Tony Khan's on camera, shirt and tie. Basically says that the AEW World title's been vacated and a championship. Oh, I got a subscriber. I didn't even know that thing could do that. That's pretty dope. A rad from me. He said that the AEW title has been vacated. That there will be a championship tournament to decide the winner. The people in the tournament are only people who have held titles in the company. Darby Allin, Sammy Guevara, Chris Jericho, Bryan Danielson, Jon Moxley, all in this tournament. Oh, Hangman Adam Page as well. I'm sorry. All in this tournament. The champion will be decided at Grand Slam at the end of this tournament with the two people in the finals facing off. He also said that the trios titles have also been vacated, and that the new champions will be crowned tonight. And they're going to take two of the semifinalists from the tournament, which was Death Triangle and Best Friends. And they will go at it one-on-one on Dynamite tonight to see who's going to be the new Trios champion. So I said, since Sunday, to those closest to me, obviously not to you guys that are watching because you only hear me talk when I'm on here. I like the sub notification too. I didn't even know that fucking would even exist, but it did. So I was of the opinion that it's all a work until someone gets fired and or suspended. Well, folks, people have been suspended. And I don't know whether or not anyone will be fired. I don't know whether or not Tony will think that anyone can move on from this situation. I am of the opinion that they should just get rid of Punk. They have plenty of, yeah, he's a ratings mover, but the guy's not fitting in with the company, obviously. The guy is supposed to be the champion, a.k.a. he's supposed to be a locker room leader. And what he did was he went on in front of the press with his CEO, boss, and owner right next to him and basically buried other EVPs in the company in front of everybody, in front of fans, in front of the media, in front of his boss. And then when it came down to talking about it, now, I don't know. Obviously, I'm going to say this for a gajillion times. I was not there. I do not know what happened. There are a lot of conflicting reports. But the fact of the matter is that cooler heads did not prevail. Cooler heads did not prevail. And instead of talking it out, they fought it out like a bunch of children and idiots. And to be quite honest, if that's going to be how you do things, then get the fuck out, man. I will tell you this right now. I watched this show tonight. I watched Dynamite. And it felt like there was a fire in everyone's belly. Like, I felt everyone came out. They were all gung-ho AEW team players. We're going to go out there and we're going to regain the trust of our fans and we're going to put on a good show. Wardlow cut an impassionate promo. MJF came out and cut a great promo. Mox went out and cut a great promo. There was a lot of great stuff that went on tonight. But we have Death Triangle as the new Trios champions. There was a championship tournament matchup tonight. Danielson versus Hangman. They put on a banger show and match. And we have Danielson moving on in the tournament. Hangman's been eliminated. A lot of great. It was a great show. I think it was the show that you needed to put on after the horrible last 72 hours of media that AEW has had. It looks like they are going to possibly push the Acclaimed. I am hoping that they win at Grand Slam because, everyone loves the Acclaimed, right? But I think it'd be great. There have been, I've been talking about this with, my close friends who we all follow wrestling. We like to chat a lot. I've heard great ideas as far as, it's going to be Danielson versus Mox for the title, with Danielson possibly winning and him finally getting the AEW title, which I would not be opposed to. Mox is on one hell of a run. I think he's definitely like a great champion. I wouldn't be opposed to him winning it either. Someone else posed, it could be Danielson versus Darby in the finals. That could also be a possibility, and they give it to Darby. Because remember, whoever wins this belt is going to end up facing MJF at some point in time. MJF has the chip from the casino ladder match, so he does get a title shot. So, it is very possible. It is very possible. So, but I thought this was the show that the company needed to put on. I thought that I thought the matches tonight were great. The promos were great. Let's get into the review of the show. So this week's Dynamite, actually I need a glass of water because god damn. I was supposed to fill this up before I went on camera, and I forgot. Okay, here we go. So tonight's Dynamite aired live from Buffalo, New York. This is pretty much the fallout show for All Out. It was announced that Tony Khan was going to address the status of the World Championship and the World Trios Championship following that the altercation that happened backstage between CM Punk, the Trios champs, which were the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, and others who were involved. The new number one contender, MJF, is scheduled to speak on tonight's show after winning the Casino Ladder match at All Out. The trios belts were going to be on the line. Orange Cassidy, Trent Beretta, and Chuck Taylor, known as the Best Friends, take on Pac, Penta, El Cero Miedo, and Rey Fenix, who compromised Death Triangle. Interim World Championship and champion Toni Storm fighting Penelope Ford in a world title eliminator bout. If Penelope Ford beats Toni, she gets a title shot. Wheeler Yuta is defending the Pure title against Daniel Garcia and his hometown crowd of Buffalo. And Chris Jericho is going to be addressing the crowd. So, basically, the show starts. Tony Khan is on the air. He basically says that the trios and world titles are being vacated, and that there's going to be a trios title match tonight and a championship eliminator tournament. MJF comes out, huge pop from the audience, gets a whole babyface reaction, panders to the crowd. He's wearing a Buffalo Bills jersey. He's kissing ass, shaking hands and kissing babies. He said that he was just kidding when he said all those negative things about AEW and the fans. He leads the fans in an AEW chant. He totally looked like he was totally full of shit. But the crowd was eating it up, and it was awesome. MJF he went on to say that he's not in the tournament because he didn't need to be, because he's going to be there to face the winner of the tournament when it's all over. Then he claimed that the company was in dark times and that there was another Jew, a famous Jew thousands of years ago, whose name started with the letter M, who led his people into the promised land, and he said that name will now be Maxwell Jacob Friedman. He's better than Moses. He's better than you, and you know it. He said that Moxley, then all of a sudden Moxley's music hits. He comes out. Mox takes the mic, says that MJF is full of shit. Immediately, MJF turns on the fans, says he only saw the world title as a bargaining chip for the bidding war of 2024. That's the only reason why he wants to be champ. He was going to take the title elsewhere to be with his friend Cody Rhodes and work with the only Khan that counted in wrestling, jolly old Saint Nick, which is Nick Khan, the co-CEO of WWE. Moxley said it wasn't the time or the place. MJF needed to leave now or Moxley was going to make him leave. It looks like they're setting up a feud going forward between Moxley and MJF. I mean, they've never liked each other, obviously. I mean, MJF's first bid for a world title was when Mox was champ and in the COVID era, and Mox beat the shit out of him. So Moxley is pretty much, I mean, you could see it being framed as him being the babyface that wants to stay with the company, and MJF is the heel who wants to leave. So that story's already written if and when they decide to do that. Mox takes the mic after MJF leaves. He also wiped his ass with a Bills jersey, which I thought was pretty hilarious. MJF did. Moxley talks about the title representing passion, a love for pro wrestling, saying that it said representing taking the dark side in the business and letting it die in the past where it belongs. He said it represented slaying demons. It represented everything that he loved about the business. Moxley said he had another shot at the game-winning goal. He said that he lost. He got pinned at All Out. It was his fault. They gave him the ball to take that shot and he missed. He pretty much said that he had another shot. He put over every single person in that tournament. Sammy Guevara, Danielson, Jericho, Darby, Hangman, everybody he put over. He basically said that he's the ace. He wants the ball, and it was time for him to be something more. It's time for him to be a legend. So Moxley is on a quest to become the first ever three-time AEW World Champion. We'll see if that happens. Show kicks right off. They went right with the title match. Trios match. Death Triangle, Pac, Rey Fenix, and Penta El Cero Miedo, and with Alex Abrahantes. They defeat Best Friends, Chuck Taylor, Trent Beretta, and Orange Cassidy with Danhausen in their corner. Great match. Fast-paced. Great action, great spots. The Best Friends put up a good fight, but it was Death Triangle who wins. The only reason I could think that this match was booked this way, because when the Omega and the Bucks eventually do come back, I mean, if they ever come back, but obviously they're gonna want to get in the ring with. I mean, Omega and Pac will put on an incredible match, and we already know how great the Lucha Brothers and the Young Bucks are in the ring. So I'm 100% in for that eventual match. Toni Storm defeats Penelope Ford in a championship eliminator tournament. If Penelope Ford beats Toni, she gets a future title shot at Toni. She did not pull it off. Pretty solid match. Nothing really crazy. 2.0 cuts a promo on Hook and Action Bronson. They basically pretty much hinted at Hook and Bronson facing off against 2.0 at some point in time. The Acclaimed came out. Huge pop. They were about to cut a promo. Swerve's music interrupted them before they could even do their rap. Basically, Swerve cuts a full heel promo saying that they were a joke, that the Acclaim want to be tag champs. Billy Gunn cuts them off, and he's like, Swerve, it ain't your house. This is Daddy Ass's house. And that the Acclaim were going to finally take gold in New York City. Based on that tag match, which I thought was one of the better matches of the weekend, it is a strong possibility that they put the belts in the Acclaim. Now, I like Swerve in Our Glory. I do think they had the unfortunate circumstance of having a misstep right when before their title reign began, when they had basically feigned a split between the two. It kind of went into a way where, like, you know, Swerve basically said that Keith Lee was dead weight. I think there was a battle royal, the Royal Rampage, I believe, was where it happened. So people were always wondering, like, are they gonna quit? Like, what's the big deal? Are they not gonna be a good tag team? I think they've had phenomenal tag matches as a tag team. I think that they were compelling characters. I think as they held the belts longer, they ended up having better and better matches. So I'm all about that. But the Acclaimed, they just have got it, man. They got it. Like, people are loving the scissor me daddy ass point. They're loving all of it. So I really do think that it's their time to win the belts. And being that, you know, as Royal said in the chat, being that Caster's from Rockville Center, he's a hometown boy. They're pretty much winning in front of their hometown crowd. So, and I'm going to be there, so I'm super excited for it. Jericho and the JAS were with Tony Schiavone. This was just Jericho, Anna Jay, Ty Conti, and Ty Mello, sorry, and Sammy Guevara. Basically, Jericho says he has found the fountain of youth, and he was drinking it in, man. And he said that, you know, he's the best Jericho he's ever been. He beat Danielson at All Out. He's the best wrestler of all time, the greatest sports entertainer ever. He said AEW was his company, it's his locker room, and no one was ever taking that away from him. And Jericho reiterated that Daniel Garcia was not going to have the JAS in his corner tonight in his title match against Wheeler Yuta for the ROH Pure title. TNT title was on the line. Wardlow defeats Tony Nese in a pretty short match. It got a good reaction from the crowd. Wardlow was going to powerbomb Mark Sterling, but Josh Woods came down and saved the day. Wardlow cut a promo about he was on a mission to make AEW his. He said that, he read stuff on the internet that Wardlow's cooled off. Wardlow's not hot anymore. But he said that his momentum isn't gone. He's putting everyone on notice. He loves his fans. He loves the company. Great promo by a champion. You really want to have those kind of promos by your champions now after your champion totally shit the fucking money bed this weekend. So it was definitely, definitely a big deal there. A hype video aired recapping the feud between Sammy Guevara and Darby Allin. It was a great video package. They've had phenomenal matches. It was always going to come down to the two of them at some point in time for either a shot or or a title that either of them was holding. It's a fantastic feud against involving two of the best young talents in AEW. So I'm definitely excited to see where that's going to go. This was a phenomenal match. William Regal said William Regal joined commentary, called Excalibur his little buttercup, and he was going to pluck off his petals and rub them all over him. And he said he could get away with it because he was an eccentric Englishman, and everyone laughed, including myself. I thought that was pretty freaking funny. Bryan Danielson defeats Hangman Page in an incredible pay-per-view quality match on live television. They went back and forth, getting a couple of near calls. Hangman hits the Deadeye, avoids the Busaiku knee, but it ended up being that... how do you do that pin? He does the O'Connor roll for the pin. Danielson moves on. I am not opposed to Danielson winning the AEW title, so as long as he keeps on winning and advancing, you get no argument from me. I think Danielson would be a fantastic champion. You want someone, you could go a lot of different ways. You could go with an AEW original and put the title on a guy like Darby, who would have a fantastic match against MJF because they have a lot of history, and Darby's never beat MJF. I think. I may be wrong. Or you have a guy who's a well-known face who would draw ratings, Bryan Danielson, who is definitely more grounded and more mature than CM Punk is, to hold the belt for a while, and Danielson and MJF would also be able to put on a phenomenal match. So I just don't see... I look at this championship tournament, and I don't see a problem with anyone winning the title except maybe Jericho and Guevara. Guevara is not ready. I think we've had enough of Jericho as champ. I don't think the company needs a heel champion right now. I think they need a babyface champion, and I think a babyface is going to win this tournament because it's going to drop to a heel eventually. So, Jungle Boy was in a pre-taped promo. He basically said he was far from done with Christian Cage. Christian Cage beat the ever-living piss out of him. They had Luchasaurus turn on Jungle Boy at All Out, powerbomb him onto the steel grating before the match even began. Jungle Boy wasn't even in the match before it started. He already had his ass whipped, and Christian beat him. It looks like Christian is gonna go undergoing surgery. I don't know if that's kayfabe or not, but basically they're putting a pin on this feud. Eventually, Christian is gonna come back, and Jungle Boy is gonna be going for him. And basically said that then Jungle Boy, in regards to Luchasaurus turning on him, said it was ironic that he was carrying Jungle Boy on his shoulders on stage for the last 3 years, because he was carrying his career on his back. And basically he said, like, now you're my next target. You were an anchor around my feet for the last 3 years. I thought it was probably one of the better promos that Jungle Boy's ever cut, and he's actually looks a little bit passionate about it, so I was very excited. Stokely Hathaway came out with his faction, said that he was the king of ladder matches. He assaulted one of the stagehands who was trying to cut him off for time. Basically, his entire group beat the shit out of him, which consists of Lee Moriarty, Ethan Page, the Gun Club, and W. Morrissey. So, and I guess MJF, because Stokely was the one that took the chip and hand delivered it to MJF. So, I don't know. Stokely's gimmick is that he's been an advocate for those who he feels like have been underutilized and overlooked in AEW, so it makes sense that MJF is in some way, shape, or form associated with them, so it makes sense. Rampage lineup for this Friday is going to be Claudio Castagnoli versus Dax Harwood for the ROH Championship. That should be a great match. Darby Allin versus Sammy Guevara. That should be a great match. If there was ever a time to watch Rampage, this week would be the week, because there are some stellar A-quality, A-show matches on that show. Dynamite next week, based on Danielson's win this week, he goes on to fight Chris Jericho. And then Jon Moxley will fight the winner of Darby Allin or Sammy Guevara. And the winner of those two matches on Dynamite will go on the following week at Grand Slam to fight for the AEW World title. The only match scheduled for Grand Slam currently, aside from the AEW title match, is the tag team match, which is Swerve in Our Glory versus the Acclaimed. They're giving the Acclaimed another shot. Very interested to see what they do there. Daniel Garcia defeats Wheeler Yuta in front of Daniel Garcia's hometown crowd to win the ROH Pure Wrestling Championship. Great technical wrestling match that went back and forth. Yuta kind of got frustrated towards the end and close fist hit Garcia, which is not a part of the Pure rules, which there was a strike against him, but it ended up being that Garcia locked the Dragon Tamer in the middle of the ring and got the submission. Crowd popped big for Garcia. Bryan Danielson comes down to the ring, puts the belt around the waist of Garcia after Garcia and Yuta kept the code of honor, shook hands before and after the match. Jericho was not happy. Basically, he basically had a look of like his girlfriend's making out with the head of the wrestling team while he's over there. Like, what the hell's going on? So, obviously, this is going to have some effect on them fighting again, because at All Out, it was Jericho that beat Danielson. So I'm very curious as to whether or not Danielson's going to reclaim that victory. I know a lot of Danielson fans out there were upset at the fact that he lost to Jericho. Jericho didn't necessarily need the win, but thanks to CM Punk, it looks like Danielson and Jericho are going to get to go around again and see what happened. But that was pretty much the end of the show. I thought it was a very good show. I thought it was a fantastic reset after all the shit that went down at All Out. I think if Punk is gone from the company forever, that's good. I'm glad I kept my kayfabe hatred for him ever since he left the WWE, and it looks like it was justified. So, hooray for me. I think Tony needs to ensure that this never happens again. I think he needs to make sure that if people have issues, that they're squashed right away. I mean, honestly, this is a roster of adults. They should be able to do it on his own, but if Tony's got to be fucking babysitter, then he's got to be fucking babysitter. To be quite honest, I thought that Christopher Daniels was part of talent relations, so the fact that he was suspended in the melee is not a very good look for him. He's supposed to be the person with the cooler head and to break things up and to make sure that cooler heads prevail and people don't do stupid shit. Another thing I think is that Tony Khan should hire a PR guy. There should have been someone in PR at that conference cutting it short the second that Punk went off. I do not think that Tony should have allowed Punk to embarrass the company in front of the media, in front of the fans, live on YouTube, in front of everybody, and do what he did. That media scrum is still up on the AEW channel. People could still go there and watch and see what he did. So if they want to leave that up there as a cautionary tale as to how not to handle a situation internally, then fine. But, like, honestly, it really did shake my confidence in Tony Khan. Because how could you sit there and just let that actually happen? Where he could talk about the EVPs that way. Now, granted, maybe he thought that Punk was injecting some reality into it and was saying a whole bunch of shit, making it some kind of work or whatever. But to be quite honest, they had nothing to do with anything Punk related in storyline. So there was no reason to bring any of them up. And everyone knows who the EVPs are, so he literally called out them almost by name in front of the media. I thought that was a very poor look. I think that Tony Khan, the fact that he's the head of analytics for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and he's also the owner of Fulham Football Club, the fact that he just sat there and let his champion do that, I thought that really undermined my confidence in him. I think a lot of the stuff that he's been doing booking-wise and how he's been handling the company, I've given him the benefit of the doubt, because he's yet to do something to make me question that until this past week. I would have cut that, and I have something else to say. I mean, I know this might be a little bit harsh, and it might not be very nice to say, but to be quite honest, I think those post-media scrums are a joke. I don't think there's any, I think there's one or two real journalists there. The rest are just podcasters and YouTubers who are playing journalists. I mean, for Christ's sake, they have 2 children there that are asking questions. You know what I'm saying? So, like, if there was ever a time to cut someone's mic, it should have been the post-media scrum, because who gives a shit? The post-media scrum, it's too much of a mixture of a clown show and reality. It's supposed to have to me, I feel like either people are going to start asking questions to these people in character, or people aren't. And the problem is that there isn't a real line in the sand at these media scrums. People asking questions in the guise of storyline. Then you have people asking questions not in the guise of storyline. For example, you had a reporter ask while Swerve and Keith Lee were up there, yo, did you ever think about calling an audible during the match and saying, hey, listen, we're going to have you guys drop the belts. We're giving it to the Acclaim. The crowd's too hot. I mean, like, that's a stupid fucking question. Because, like, number one, like, if you're already talking about, like, them in kayfabe, why the hell are you asking a question about what Tony would have actually done to book the match? And you know what I mean? Like, it's just dumb. I think it's stupid. I think that either you need to have real journalists in there asking real questions, and guidelines should be, hey, listen, this is not a kayfabe. This is not a kayfabe, press conference. We're going to ask real questions, blah, 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 so that the wrestlers know and the people at the scrum know. Otherwise, it should be like, hey, listen, this is going to be a kayfabe conference. You should only be asking things in the guise of storyline, and we're not going to be talking about any real stuff, and that's pretty much it. So, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like you should keep, like Vin. I'm sorry, not Vin. Josh is right in the chat. There should be some sort of effort to keep some sort of kayfabe alive. You know what I mean? The one thing that I did like, even though it was all madness the last 72 hours, the one thing I did like is that I had no idea what was real or not. We had no idea. Fans didn't know. Fans weren't there. The only people we could depend on is people saying, oh, this is what I heard on the internet. And to be quite honest, you trying to find truth based on the whole premise of finding people who are talking about it like they were there on the internet. It's not the greatest thing to do. So it was almost a crapshoot to find out what was real or what was not. The only things that we could tell were real was what happened tonight. And they vacated the trios and the world title. We don't know who's been fired. We don't definitely know who's been suspended. Obviously, more stuff's going to come out as the days and weeks go on. Yeah, they do need me at the scrum, Doom. They do need me at the scrum. Because you know what? I would have asked the real questions. I would have been like, as soon as it was just Tony and Punk had gone, I would have been like, Tony, what are your thoughts on the fact that your world champion just buried your EVPs in front of you, in front of the media and press online? What are your thoughts on that? I think those are the questions that needed to ask. If you were a real journalist, I think that should have been the question asked by Tony. And no one asked that. They asked them ridiculously stupid questions. And you know what? That's what happens when you have a media scrum full of people who aren't real journalists. They just ask fan questions. And to be quite honest, like, if you want, you know what? That's what FanFest is for. You guys want to ask fan questions? Go to the fucking FanFest in front of the building, but don't use up time for real journalists at the media scrum. Real actual journalists should be there asking real questions, and real guidelines should be put down as to what kind of questions or what kind of environment is this media scrum. So like that, the whole rules of that have got to change. Either A, Tony's got to set more guide rules. B, he's got to be more forthright in telling people, hey, no and yes there. Or C, hire someone from PR to be the bad guy. If Tony doesn't want to be the bad guy, hire people to be the bad guy for you. Hire someone in PR who could be at that media scrum, and the second one of those wrestlers says anything that could be detrimental to the company, it shuts it down. All right? Because right now what's going on with Warner Brothers and Discovery is there is a big deal going on in terms of what content they're going to be keeping going forward. And AEW's contracts are coming up soon. So if there was ever a time for someone not to fuck up and go in business for themselves, it was right now. And that's another thing that kind of pisses me off about the whole CM Punk thing, because if you're leading towards TV contracts and you have guys that are quote unquote going into business for themselves on camera and you can't trust them to go unscripted to protect the company and to be good employees, then you need to do something about it, because that contract affects the entire rest of your roster. That contract affects the growth of your business. It was rumored that their deal was going to go up from 44 million to over 200 million in their TV deal. How in God's holy name could you be an owner of two sports franchises and allow your champion, your franchise, your head guy to go in the media while you're sitting there next to him and allow that shit to happen? If that was Dana White would have been like, we're cutting his mic, you're done. Get out of here, you're done. That would have been it. Or Dana would have had someone from PR do it for him. But I cannot believe, like, this is the thing that made me think it was a work, because I was like, no way Tony Khan would let Punk do this. No way. Tony Khan was just sitting there like this. Punk's sitting there. He's fucking eating muffins. He's drinking a drink. It was the most unprofessional thing I've ever seen in my life. You had Swerve and Keith Lee come out, professional. You had Tony Storm come out, professional. Punk came out, he was a fucking mess. Unbelievable. I mean, like, it was almost like a Moxie promo, a Moxley presser, but it was almost like, no one really you expect that from Mox. Mox is great on the mic, but like, he's his own, he dances to the beat of his own drum. But I mean, Jesus Christ. Like, he just sat there and nodded as his EVPs get buried, as he says as he says that they could have run a Target. You know what company they're running, Punk? The company that pays, that signs your checks. The guy who hired them is sitting right fucking next to you. What does that say about the guy next to you who hired them to be EVPs? What does that say about him when you say that they can't manage a Target? You're supposed to be the fucking champion. If there's anything that if there's anyone that went into business for themselves the last couple of weeks, it was fucking Phil Brooks, CM Punk. He needs to be gone. Obviously, the guy has too big of a chip on his shoulder. Obviously, he always feels like he has something to prove. Obviously, he's blindly loyal to those in his closest circle until he's not. I think it's time to go. Today was a great show. Last couple of days of wrestling was crazy. I will be back next week. Same time, same channel. Smells Like Wrasslin on the Smells Like Cologne Network on YouTube. Again, like I said, lots of things are working behind the scenes. It's going to take some time, but the channel is growing. We are going to be expanding, adding new content to the channel. TV and movie reviews, gaming streams, a whole bunch of new stuff. New features to the channel. I will be introducing soon live callers, so you here in the chat can not only have a chance to type in your questions, but also have your voice live on the radio right here on YouTube. So that is being implemented slowly but surely. I am investing in a new setup. So come the fall, a lot of those changes will be coming in as I invest more time and capital into the setup. But I want to thank you all for joining. We had a great turnout in the chat. I want to thank Josh for participating. Sarah, thank you again for watching. Rob, thank you also for watching. Two people who I know who are not wrestling fans, but I appreciate you watching and supporting the show. Doom, my most loyal listener and follower, thank you again. I think Royal was here too. Royal, thank you for watching again. I appreciate you, and I know that you're spreading the word about the show. Everyone, if you know anyone who likes professional wrestling, please send them a link to the channel. Spread the word. Right now, the only way that word is being spread about this channel is word of mouth. So I depend on you guys, the listeners, those in the chat who have been here. You want to just spread the word, let everyone know. A lot of great things are coming to the channel. Let them know. TV, movie reviews are coming. Video game streams are coming. So there's going to be a lot of things on this channel for a lot more people as we expand and grow. Thank you guys very much. I will see you next week. We will talk about who is going to be in the final match for the AEW title at Grand Slam. Thank you very much, guys. Take care.